bunch of classmates and I were sitting outside class waiting for the teacher to get there, and the subject of sex in a relationship came up. One of my fellow students is an older woman who is very adamant that sex has nothing to do with a marriage, and that if you marry someone and the very next day your spouse gets in an accident and is paralyzed from the waist down and can no longer have sex, that you are required to stay with that person and not have sex with anybody else, even if the other person can't have sex. Maybe not necessarily paralyzed, but something happens that they can't have sex. She is a little bit older and comes from a very religious, conservative background, so I can see where she's coming from. The reality of the fact is that most people, even if they stayed with that person as their spouse, they're probably going to find something on the side. If they don't just divorce because the relationship has changed and move on. That sounds a little cold, thoughtless perhaps, but I'm just going from what I've seen and kind of what I feel. Well, I can't even say that because I don't plan on ever getting married. Don't need to. If you're going to have children, sure, don't plan on having children. She was very adamant that abstinence was the problem. Having sex before marriage was the problem with society in general, or between young people. If young people didn't have sex before they were married, all these problems would go away. I'm not sure what all problems she was talking about. My input was that a relationship changes. Her stance was a relationship, or people change, but a relationship doesn't change. I'm not quite sure where her logic was in this, but people change, and therefore a relationship changes. In my mind, that seems okay, so yes. She was giving the example if your spouse got into an accident, of course, and couldn't have sex, that you need to stay with them because the relationship doesn't change, but the people do. So the relationship has to change, or can't change. I gave her the example, if I was married and I came home and found a severed head in my freezer, the relationship would change quite dramatically. There's no compensating for severed head in a freezer. Paralyzed from the waist down, severed head. Not quite the same, but it still changes the relationship. There were also a lot of people in class that were talking about not wanting to get married before they had sex with their partner. Most of them were very young and were citing the fact that what if they sucked in bed, they were lame, whatever. Mostly just sexually performance-oriented. I suppose that as you get older, that's not quite as important. It's still important, still a large part of a relationship, but not as important. But they all agreed, except for this one woman who was older, that they would not get married before having sex with the person they were intending on marrying. Something I saw as a difference in the generations. Older, conservative, don't have sex before you're married, abstinence, that's the cause of all the problems with young kids. The young kids would never imagine getting married without having sex first. Sex is a large part of the relationship, and relationships change. Maybe that's some of the problem. My whole point is that everyone's different. There's different moral values and different scenarios for every person. You have to find the person that has your same values. Not one way, not abstinence and stay with that relationship no matter what, or screw everything on two legs. Neither way is exactly right for everyone. Everyone is different. Therefore, no one rule can rule them all. Just tell me what you think.